Welcome to the Primo's Musings podcast.
Good evening. This is Shri again, and this time we'll wrap up the NFL previews with the last division, which is the AFC South. The AFC South, we did have the Houston Texans, the Colts, the Jacksonville Jaguars, and then we have the Tennessee Titans. So let's start off with, let me start with like Tennessee Titans, because that's the team. That's a team that I definitely they've picked up some. Um, they have Brian Callahan as a coach. They've lost key departures. They did lose Ryan Tannehill. They have Derrick Henry is gone to Baltimore. But they picked up some quarterback like Mason Rudolph, Tony Pollard, and Calvin Ridley, Tyler Boyd. So a lot of big picks that they have, and they also picked cornerback from the Chiefs, Ladarius Sneed, and safety Jamal Adams too. So they they've showed up their defense. Um, the big question for them with Ryan Tannehill leaving is what can they make of their quarterback? Um, because no Mike Rabel there, no Tannehill, no Derrick Henry. So you do have the Kentucky quarterback Will Levis, second year um, in the league, and then they have a new West Coast offense under the watch of offensive coordinator Nick Foles. So hopefully they have Ridley, like we talked about, the great 2023. Ridley was at the time when before the Titans were picking him, there was a big discussion whether the Patriots could sign Ridley, but he did go to Tennessee. He had like 1,000-yard season last year, so that could definitely help Will Levis. Um, Again, they've spent a lot of money in free agency. The ownership has definitely filled a lot of spots in the offensive scheme system, including getting Levis a lot of help in his second season. Um, One thing that the Titans definitely um, were in trouble last year was their defense. I mean, they finished 6-11. They only forced 14 turnovers in 2023, which was ranked second to the last in the league. So um, hopefully, the turnovers that has to increase for the defense, and they definitely have spent a lot. Like I mentioned, with all the cornerbacks and safeties on the back end and defensive end and linebackers that they have picked, and they've also picked like Quandre Diggs on the safety side. So, I mean, the ownership has definitely spent a lot of money to shoring up the defense and also given Will Levis a lot of offensive weapons. So it remains to be seen if Tennessee can. I definitely see them improving from 6-11 from last year. But the question is, can they compete with the rest of the division? That remains to be seen, especially with Houston in the league and then Indy, with Indy also getting their healthy quarterback, Anthony Richardson. Let's quickly pivot to the next team, which is the Indianapolis Colts. Shane Steichen, I mean, last year's record, they were 9-8. And they did pick up Joe Flacco from Cleveland. They also picked up some wide receiver Adonai Mitchell, and they did lose Gardner Minshew, who has now gone to the Las Vegas Raiders. Zach Moss, I think we did talk about that. He went to Cincinnati, and they lost Isaiah McKenzie and Jake Martin as well. So Anthony Richardson got hurt last year. He was the fourth overall pick in 2023. Hopefully, he had a shoulder injury in week number 5. So I'm expecting Anthony Richardson to bounce back, and he's a beast. And let's see, he's got Michael Pittman, Josh Downson, Mitchell Better, as well as they still have Jonathan Taylor, one of the best running backs in the league. So he has like the offensive line is back. So that's one of the things that Indy always didn't have, even during the Peyton Manning years. Their offensive line is finally good. With Anthony Richardson coming back, that should keep their running game intact with Taylor, Jonathan Taylor, and they also have a great receiving group. So that's something that, from an offensive standpoint, I think the Colts are in a good spot. Now let's come to the defense. So that's one of their Achilles heel in 2023. They were horrendous. They were 28th in points allowed. So that's 415 points. That's not going to get done in the modern day NFL. And they did give up a lot more yards too. So they didn't add a lot of personnel. So that's one of the things that I'm very concerned about if I'm a Colt fan. I think the defense is a huge concern to me. They've not signed any marquee players or excellent run stoppers. So um, one thing is that their offense is going to be much better, but I'm concerned about the defense. So I think they were 9-8 last year. So I see them pretty much staying the same and maybe 10-7 at the most. But I definitely am not hopeful of their defense at all. So let's then quickly pivot to Jacksonville. This is something that Jacksonville, they did uh, have a 9-8 record. Doug Peterson is back again as a coach, and they did pick up a few people. They did pick up Duvernay from Baltimore. They did pick up Patriots ex-quarterback Mac Jones, Eric Armstead as defensive lineman, and they did pick up some good pieces on defense too. And then they picked up some wide receivers as well. So the question, but they did lose a lot of players. They lost Calvin Ridley to the Tennessee Titans, um, and they did lose some Rayshon Jenkins um, as well as another cornerback, I think Darius Williams. So one thing they did do during the offseason, they did reward their quarterback, Trevor Lawrence, $275 million extension, which was for them a lot of money that they spent, which means that the coach, which means that the owner is banking on it. I think he's already come out and said that this is a big year for them. But, Trevor Lawrence has lost his receiver in Ridley, but they did add some weapons in Davis and Thomas and, the first rounder. They One of the things with Jacksonville last year was they started 8-3. They lost last 5 of the 6 games. They missed the postseason after leading the division for 2 months, and the entire defensive staff is out, and all the veteran starters were gone in free agency. So one thing that Jacksonville and Lawrence need to do better is ball security. He had a 21 turnover season in 2023, and if that's going to be an issue, then they're not going to make the playoffs. The defense was bad last year. It was ranked 22, but still. And then the other thing that they were not really good. Of course, Lawrence was pretty bad in terms of like interceptions, but their offensive line was terrible. And Lawrence was sacked at least like 35 times last year. 4 games, he had injuries. That cannot happen for the Jaguars if they need to make a big statement here. They need to improve their offensive line. That was probably one of the worst. And they'll have to avoid like I said, 1-5 in the last 6 games to close the season. But I definitely don't see the Jags again. It's a 10-7, 9-8 was last year. Maybe 10. Maybe they improve by 1 game if Lawrence can not only stay healthy but also limit his interceptions. Then we come to the final team, which was the surprise of the NFL last year, the Houston Texans. D'Amico Ryans has this team playing at a high level. CJ Stroud, what a season that he had last year. They went 10-7. They went to the playoffs. But the key that they've done was to surround CJ Stroud with some key additions with Stephon Diggs. And again, we all know about Stephon Diggs in Buffalo, diva receiver. Let's see if he can bottle that up and then help CJ Stroud become the quarterback he can. He did definitely help Josh Allen in Buffalo, but that's something that that I'll be watching that with let's see that. And then they did pick up Joe Mixon from the Bengals, so that's a big pickup for them. They did pick up a lot of defensive things, including Miles Bryant, cornerback, um, and they picked up some defensive tackles and defensive ends also from other teams. But they did lose Devin Singletary on the defensive side of things and Sheldon Rankins as well. So remains to be seen how the defense is going to react. The one good thing last year was CJ Stroud was a surprise of the NFL. He had like close to like 275 yards passing per game as a rookie. And, they already have Nico Collins, who is one of the top notch receivers, and adding Diggs to that, the whole thing is, and then also they have Tank Dell. So they have two great receivers. Now adding Stephon Diggs, what does that do to the other receivers? With Diggs demand the ball more, which means that the other parts of the offense will suffer, remains to be seen. And the good thing is, like, they did sign Dalton Schultz too from Dallas to a 3-year deal, and then they got Collins also got like a $72 million extension, and they did sign Hunter, who had 16 sacks for Minnesota, so that's a great pickup. And then they picked up Autry from Tennessee, who had like 11 sacks last year. He was probably the best, the shining moment for Tennessee with their very poor defense. So here we are. Who does win this division? I definitely seen it's Houston Texans going to do it again. And I definitely think maybe it's between Indy and Jacksonville. I maybe for second and third, and then I do see Tennessee finishing last in the division. So that's where I see it. Houston definitely going to top the division. CJ Stroud, he's going to have a big year if Diggs can uh, keep it safe there. So that's pretty much wraps up the AFC South as well. With that, we have wrapped up all the divisions in the NFL. The opening day starts on Thursday with Kansas City taking on Baltimore. I'll be excited to watch. Can the Kansas City Chiefs go for a three-peat, and can Baltimore make a statement in the opening day? So with that, we wrap up the series, and looking forward to the week-by-week review with uh, my other co-host, Satish and Dan, to help me out on the weekly picks. Thanks again for listening, and have a good night.
Thank you for listening. Primo will be back soon.